Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're going to discuss a topic that I call the economic malpractice of Barack Obama. We have little time, so please forgive me. I'm going to move quickly. I'm going to present to you an array of financial information. May be a little dry and a little boring, but I ask you to listen intently because it's very important. I'm not going to try to persuade you. What I hope you will see is the weight of the evidence and draw the right conclusions. All this information I'm going to give to you is readily available by government sources, but it's not being reported because of a compliant news media. Unless we've been asleep for the last 5 years, we know we've gone through some tough economic times. My contention, though, is not because of the financial crisis of 2008, but because of wrong-headed policy, regulations that have put a stranglehold on business, and an irresponsible lack of financial jurisprudence. First section we're going to discuss tonight is unemployment and the workforce participation rate. During the 8 years of Bush, the unemployment rate was under 5%, a rate that the federal government calls functional employment. For 5 years of Obama, it's been on average 7.5%. There's also another rate of unemployment called U6, which puts together those who are unemployed plus those who have given up looking for work, the chronically unemployed, and those who are working part-time because they can't find full-time work. That rate is at 12.5% right now. It peaked in 2011 at 17%. The workforce participation rate, that is the measurement of how many people in our nation, the percentage of the population who was in the workforce. When he took office in 2009, that rate was 66%. In 2014, that rate is down to 63%. What that 3% translates into you is a population of 315 million people, and 10 million jobs have vanished into thin air. Our rate of growth in our government, as reported by the Office of Management and Budget, we've been on average for every 10-year period following World War II of 3% growth. During the 5 years of President Obama, we've had a rate of growth of 0.73%, below 1. To get to 3% for his term, he'd have to average 6.78% per year for the next 3 years. It's never been done. Next, we're going to talk about our budget, our deficit, and our national debt. The last Bush budget in 2009 was $3.168 trillion. During the 5 years of Obama, the average budget has been $3.63 trillion, which is an increase of $500 billion per year. What that translates into is entitlement spending, which is giveaway programs, welfare, food stamps, Medicare, things of that nature. We're spending an additional $500 billion per year. Now, currently 90 million people in this country are getting food stamps. Our income to the government in taxes is $2.3 trillion. Now what that translates into is what's called a deficit of $1.3 trillion, or more money that we're spending than what we're taking in. And that deficit is also called borrowing from China. That's a third of our nation's spending that is not paid for. On average, during the 8 years of Bush, the average deficit was $0.3 trillion. Obama's is $1.3 trillion, over 4 times the amount. Our national debt, which has exploded exponentially. For 220 plus years and 43 presidents, we got to a national debt of a little over $9 trillion. Under Obama, in the last 5 years, it is now $17.5 trillion. That has doubled. It's almost equal to what our GDP is, or our gross domestic product, which is the total of everything that we produce in this country. Once we get to that amount, we're in deep trouble, folks. The last thing I'm going to talk about is our cost of living and inflation. In 2009, gas was $1.64 per gallon. Can't remember that, can we? On average, for the 5 years of Obama, it's been $3.28 per gallon, and right now it's at $3.69 a gallon. This is the same candidate in 2008 that said he had no problem with $5 a gallon gasoline. What this translates into is the higher cost of goods and services for you, because everything has to be brought to market. Some of the examples of those things are milk at 26% increase, beef at 26% increase, dairy at 13% increase, and other foods at 13% increase. Now the government says we have an inflation rate, which is a rate of growth of costs of goods and services, at 2.1%. Now can you believe that? The trick is that the government doesn't include food nor gasoline in that calculation. That's how they get away with it. Coming to a close, let me do a little recap here. Our unemployment rate is 7.5% on average, and the real unemployment rate is at 12.5%. Our workforce participation rate is down 3%, which translates into 10 million jobs lost. We have an explosion in spending, deficits, borrowing from China, and the rise of our national debt. We've had a low rate of growth of 0.73% compared to the average of 3% over history. We've had an explosion in our cost of living. Milk and beef up 26%, dairy and food up 13%. What I hope you've seen this evening is the real story. What I hope you can come to believe is the economic malpractice of Barack Obama.